right, welcome to part two of the 10-minute repertoire challenge. And the 10-minute repertoire challenge came about. I had a viewer reach out wondering if I could come up with a repertoire that they could learn in 10 minutes to play as Black. And I didn't think I could do an entire repertoire for Black in 10 minutes, but I thought I could do the E4 part in 10 minutes and the D4 part in 10 minutes. And so I already did the D4 part, and now I want to do the E4 part. And there'll actually be a link to a Lee chess study that has the PNG file that you could download, or has these moves in there if you end up liking it or want to try it out. But what I will do is I will get the clock started and see if I can get it covered in 10 minutes. It was a pretty easy choice, actually, what opening to play for the 10-minute repertoire against E4. So let me get the timer going here, and we'll see if I can get it in 10 minutes. All right, so yeah, for the E4 repertoire, it was an easy choice. I chose the French defense, and the reason for that is it's a good one of the main defenses that's considered good, solid, played at the world-class level. And it's actually, you can play it in a way where you don't have to know a lot of theory, and you won't get bad positions, and you can use just some general ideas and be all right for the most part. So let's look at it. I just wanted to point something out real quick before we go into each of the four main branches that I kind of want to go over. Let's just look at this light squared bishop. You can see in the French, it is biting on this E6 pawn. And so that's kind of the problem piece of the French. And if you can solve that problem piece, if you can make it so that this light squared bishop is active in the game, then you will have done your job in the opening. So let's first look at the French exchange variation. Now, the exchange variation does that job for us, but it is still our quote-unquote bad bishop per se, because it's on the same colored pawn as our central pawn. And so our goal is going to be to trade that off or to get it on a better diagonal. So our idea is we're going to start out with bishop to d6 in these exchange lines. And most commonly, they'll start with a bishop to d3, knight to f3, that kind of thing. Our key move is to play knight to e7. And the reason for this is that by playing knight to e7, we support our light squared bishop going to f5 and contesting their light squared bishop, which, worth noting, is usually the white's best piece in the French defense. So our idea will be we'll just get castled, and just note that if they play bishop to g5, we can just play f6 and break that pin. It's nothing to worry about. We don't have to worry about it. We're solid here. So the idea is then we are able to play bishop to f5 and contest that light squared bishop. So they'll either exchange it, which is great for us, we got rid of their best minor piece, or they'll move it off of this diagonal. And that's fine too, because at least we got this bishop outside of we got it out onto an active diagonal. So either way we win. So another way that this, one other thing they could try doing, instead of playing knight to f3 right away, they could play bishop to d3 first. That wouldn't matter. We still play our bishop to d6, continue along the same lines, and voila, we get in our bishop to f5, contesting the bishop on d3. So that's the gist of what we do against that. And let's actually look at what happens if instead of playing bishop to g5, they play rook to e1. We just contest it, so that's fine, nothing to worry about. And yeah, that's basically all you need to know for the exchange variation. So let's move on to another cool line, which saves us a ton of theory. And the idea is the two main moves against, the most testing moves for us as black are is when white plays knight to c3, or if they play knight to d2. That's called the terrace. And the idea is we're going to respond the same way against both of those moves. So let's look at how we handle that. We basically take the e-pawn. In either case, they need to retake that pawn with their knight, so we end up in the same exact position. Now, how we're going to deal with this is we're going to address our problem piece right away. We're going to play bishop to d7. They'll normally play knight to f3, and then we'll play bishop to c6. Now, we've spent a couple tempo doing that, but we've gotten our bad bishop activated, and we're going to trade it off for one of their minor pieces. So that's our theme. We're going to get rid of our bad light squared bishop in all of the major branches. And what we do is we play knight b to d7 to prepare knight to f6, and then we can use that to try to contest their minor pieces, and we'll try to get rid of minor pieces since we have less space, and we'll get rid of our bad bishop for one of their minor pieces. So basically we go here. If they exchange, fantastic. They just made our job a little easier. We're happy exchanging off our bishop for their knight, playing c6, and we have this good solid structure, and we will aim to play either e5 or c5 with the good position. And you know what, this actually scores pretty well when you look over. Well, I guess you can't see it, but it scores well for black. Now, if instead of exchanging here, if they play like bishop to g5, pinning us, we just simply break the pin. We're happy to get as many minor pieces taken off the board as they want. We just kind of, centralize our pieces. And this was just a way it might go. Look, we were able to get in our e5 break, so we're sitting good here. So that's what we do against both knight to c3 and knight b to d2. Those are the two most common variations at the high level. Now, the other major way that white could play is playing this advanced variation where they play e5. And now how black generally proceeds in these positions is we play c5 and we try to put pressure on d4. We hit the base of their center. So they will normally play c3. And now kind of the traditional way of playing this would be to play knight to c6, queen to b6, piling up pressure on d4. But we're gonna do a little bit different way of doing this. We're gonna actually let this knight, our b knight, sit there, and it has a very specific reason. We're actually gonna play knight to e7, and one thing to note, our plan is to play knight to c6, b6, and then bishop to a6, leaving this b knight on b8 to support the exchange of our light squared bishop for their light squared bishop. That would be a win for us. And so one thing to just mention quickly, we don't have to fear them taking, you might be worried about obstructing our bishop's protection of that c-pawn. If they end up taking our c-pawn, that's fine. We will attack two of their pawns at once. We'll get one of them back, and we have a good position. We have more pawns in the center than they do, so we dismantled their pawn center. So another thing, let's just go down the line. This is traditionally what you'll see most often. Well, our plan here was to play b6, get our bishop out to a6, and try to get their light squared bishop off the board. So that's what we do. Now, stronger players may play a4 here, hitting both of these knights at the same time. Then we just back that knight back up to b8, protect this, and we're good. We've gotten rid of their best minor piece, their best piece that generally white's happy about. Now, let's say instead of castling, let's say they play queen to e2. This is like a smarter player. They see what our plan is. They're going to try to prevent it. Well, we can just play a5 and that lets our rook add additional protection on a6. So you can see that would just, we just kind of force our way in. I'll have a PGN file, like I said, that people are free to look at. It looks like I got a minute, so let's just cover, this would be less common, but you may see people play the King's Indian attack. And their idea is they're going to fianchetto on the king side, and they have this standard attack that they like to do to try to attack us on the king side. And I think the key is, if you want to avoid a lot of memorization and stuff like that in your repertoire, try to get them away from their standard plans, and then they'll kind of, be on their own. So how I like to play this is be knight to f6. And if they go along, if they're a King's Indian attack player, a lot of times they'll just go about their plan anyway. We play our another knight out. And now it's going to go down one of two things. Either they'll play g3, in which case we just exchange in the center, grab our share of the center, and we're sitting fine here. Or they'll say, aha, I'm going to play e5 and drive a wedge into his position. All right, we ran out of time, but it's only about 10 more seconds, so I'll continue. We just go back to d7. They'll play d4. And now another thematic idea in the French defense is we play f6. And the idea is let's say they play bishop to b5. We'll dismantle their central pawns. If they take it, let's say they take our pawn, we can just take it with the queen, and we're sitting fine here. So anyway, that is the best I could come up with for a 10-minute repertoire. I would feel completely fine actually playing this repertoire. I think the French is probably, if you want to not have to study much, memorize much, play on ideas, I think this is the way to go. I should specify, I think the Scandi is a good way to go as well. The viewer actually said they didn't want to deal with the Scandi or the Slav, and so I kind of went down what I thought would be the next best choice. And I think the French is a really good choice. So perhaps what I'll do, if people have interest, leave a comment, let me know, and maybe I'll try to see if I could come up with a 10-minute repertoire for white. That might be a little bit more challenging, but I do have an idea. And maybe what I could do is do that and then play some maybe 5-minute blitz games, and then play a few games, and then look up, go through how I would probably try to develop a repertoire using this as a simple backbone, which I do think will cover you the majority of the time. And then the idea would be is you play a game, and then you refer to the database, either a lead chess database or a chess tempo database. Find a game where a strong player played in the line that you were playing, and if you do that over time, you will learn all these key ideas in this opening system, in this opening repertoire, without having to go through the headache of just trying to learning the opening and memorizing the lines and everything first before playing it. If you play it, then you have an emotional attachment to the game, and you will remember it better if you try to study the game after you play it and see how it was handled by a strong player. And the other cool thing is you will find you'll come to notice some players that play these lines frequently, and they'll become kind of like a hero of yours, and you'll kind of just see how they handle it in that situation. And then if you want to, you can proactively just go through the games of the players who frequently play these lines that you like. So anyway, perhaps I'll do a quick video on everything non E4 and D4, like the English, the ready, those kind of things. I guess we kind of already covered the King's Indian attack here, so that would be shortened up a bit. But I hope you found it helpful. I think it's a perfectly playable thing. I've actually played this stuff before. I don't mind playing it again. And maybe I'll do that and kind of show you how I would go about trying to learn this opening just from this 10-minute of ideas that I put out there, and then just have it be like a working body of knowledge that you gain knowledge over time as you play the game and continue onwards. So anyway, hope you found it useful. Have a good one.